Good evening. It's Thursday, March 31st, 2016. I'm your host, Rebecca Paganini.
And I'm Stephen Anastas. Welcome to The Local Live. Earlier today, Democratic presidential candidates Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders brought their campaigns a little closer to home.
Former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton visited SUNY Purchase, while Senator of Vermont Bernie Sanders is scheduled to speak at St. Mary's Park in the Bronx. Our Local Live producers Kat Galliano and Shayla Navarro were at the scene. Here's a sneak peek of what you'll see next.
Hey everyone, I'm Kat Galliano reporting live from the Hillary Clinton rally at SUNY Purchase. We'll have all the details and all the latest scoop on the next episode of The Local Live. Back to you in the
We've been here since 5 a.m. feeling the burn, baby.
As the New York primaries are getting closer, the presidential rallies are getting closer to our community as well. Today, LMC-TV Local Live is here at St. Mary's Park in the Bronx, where presidential candidate Bernie Sanders will meet with his New York supporters. We're hours away from the senator speaking, but as you can see, the lines have already started.
Feel the burn.
That roommate.
Hi, my name is Sam. I'm from New Jersey. I'm running for freeholder in Passaic County because I support Bernie Sanders, and I'm hoping for a better future for all of us. And this is my son, Ronan, and feel the burn! And that's all.
We are definitely looking forward to next week's report, but now it's time for a preview of what you'll see tonight.
Flooding talk gets residents to speak out at the Village of Mamaroneck Board of Trustees.
A bullet hits a Larchmont resident's home. More details coming up.
2 Mamaroneck soccer players make it internationally. Stay tuned for our sports segment.
Suspects for hacking the Rye Brook Dam have been indicted. Find out more about this story and more in our segment In the Media.
What is Pride Works? Our own Mike Witch has the story. Should we dump the Superwoman hype? And can she lean in without Superman? In honor of Women's History Month, we are asking whether women still have to choose between career and family. More in our live roundtable discussion.
Tell us what you think. In person, over the phone, online. Watch and hear yourself on TV. You tell us, we air it. This is The Local Live.
For over 3 hours, more than 20 residents of the Village of Mamaroneck spoke up and voiced their concerns to the village court about finding a resolution to the flooding issue in our area. The reactions of residents were sparked by the Harbor Coastal Zone Management Commission's recommendation to the Department of State. The commission suggested that $70 million Army Corps of Engineers flood mitigation plan is inconsistent with our local waterfront rehabilitation program, or LWRP. They say that the plan is inconsistent with several policies.
But what is the LWRP and what effect does it have on the Army Corps project? The LWRP is a document that was originally adopted in 1984. It contains 44 policies aiming to promote a balance between economic development and preservation of our coastal resources. If the New York Department of State finds inconsistencies with our local LWRP, the Army Corps of Engineers flood mitigation plan will not move forward. Let's take a listen at some residents' reactions.
Where was everybody that night? Where was everybody for 9 nights that I was out there? Where was everybody with their opinions about the floods and about what we're going to do with the water?
Yeah.
I've been out of chief for 8 years.
They changed that number to
Not
75
one
million.
person has come up and said what we're going to do. But the people all like us that live there and flood all the time, we have a problem. If the Army Corps engineer says, hey, listen, we're going to try this and see if it works, let's try it and see if it works.
1980 came, it was too much money. It was a crazy number. All these years later, and it's since 2010, so it took us 6 years to get to this point. Now, a few people want to stand up and they want to say there's inconsistencies. Every person that I've spoke to that has said there's an inconsistency, their house doesn't flood. Not one of them.
I have lived through 4 floods. I am tired of it. When we had it 40 years ago, nothing was done. I care about fish, but I don't care about these fish. I care about the people. I care about people who keep losing their property, like myself. 4 furnaces, 4 water heaters. Enough is enough.
After comments from the public, the mayor and the board decided that they needed more information to make a decision on what will be most beneficial for the community. Village manager Richard Slingerland told us that the study stage of the project has cost about $8.3 million.
During the same meeting, the Village of Mamaroneck Board of Trustees discussed their 2016-2017 annual budget, which was released on March 18th. According to the village manager Richard Slingerland, the village increased spending by 2.7%. If the budget passes, Village of Mamaroneck residents should expect a slight property tax increase of 0.3%. However, this decision is still under revision. We are going to keep following the story and tell you more as it develops.
Shots were fired outside a luxury apartment complex in Larchmont Tuesday night. The Town of Mamaroneck Police Department responded to 911 calls from residents of the Carlton House who heard gunfire. A stray bullet came flying through the wall of a family home, but luckily no one was injured. The bullet went through the siding outside of the house, through the sheetrock, and landed in a glass liquor cabinet. The homeowner did not want to be identified, but said, quote, "We were very scared." It is still unclear who or what was being targeted. Police also found a parked purple Lexus convertible car with multiple bullet holes. The bullet that ended up in the house was most likely a stray shot. Police have been patrolling the apartment on North Chatsworth Avenue as they continue to calm residents and look for suspects. Now, here's Bobby Baez to brief us on the stories trending this week in our local media.
Last week, a federal grand jury in Manhattan indicted 7 Iranians for hacking the Rybrook Dam in Westchester, as well as other financial institutions. The spokesman for Iran's foreign ministry denied the cyber attacks, stating that cyber attacks are not in Iran's agenda and that they do not support such measures. You can find this story on the Mamaroneck Daily Voice. Last month, the Village of Mamaroneck passed a law that would ban pet stores from selling cats and dogs that were bred in puppy mills. So according to the Mamaroneck Daily Voice, Mount Pleasant recently became the second municipality to pass this law, as the town board voted 4-0 to support the ban. According to Aloha Journal News, Ardsley police are currently investigating a GoFundMe campaign for former Westchester resident Shivani Diakaran, who is said to be suffering from terminal cancer. A GoFundMe campaign raised $35,000 and a fundraising spaghetti dinner raised an additional $16,000. Suspicion rose when Diakaran claimed that her doctor died in a 2015 Nepal earthquake, even though it was reported that no Americans died in the earthquake. Major League Baseball, as well as the President of the United States, have taken advantage of the eased travel restrictions between the United States and Cuba. Pretty soon, many people will be taking advantage of this golden opportunity to travel to the Caribbean island. Join travel expert Diana Heckler on April 18th, 7 p.m. at the Larchmont Public Library to learn how to plan the perfect trip to Cuba. Read more about this story on the Mamaroneck Daily Voice. That's it for this week. I am Bobby Baez, signing off.
We have our local trivia question up next, and don't go anywhere after that because we have our live roundtable discussion. In honor of Women's History Month, we're discussing whether or not women still have to choose between career and family.
Good evening, I'm Maura Carlin. Having it all, career and family, the gender gap. Well, in honor of Women's History Month, we are looking at the power and place of women in the workforce and the family. Nearly a generation after the rise of the feminist movement, women are still asked, how do you do it? They still feel the need to be a superwoman, and yet they still only earn 3/4 of what men earn. We want to hear from you. What's your experience? What's your opinion? And feel free to ask questions of our guests. As always, you can call, email, or tweet. The contact information's on your screen. Our guests tonight are Judge Chistie Derrico, a millennial Chris Saphire, and he's kind of on the cusp, and businesswoman Nancy Silberkleit. Chistie and Nancy are parents, and Chris is hoping to begin the journey of parenthood with his wife. But let me start with an observation. Interviews of prominent fashion entrepreneur Tory Burch, actress and businesswoman Jessica Alba, and many other successful women, in these interviews, they are all eventually asked the same question. How do you balance career and family? Even Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg has weighed in on whether mothers can make it to the top court. In case you're interested, she has 2 children and said the answer is yes. On its face, though, this question may seem reasonable. My husband, though, was never asked those questions or even told about family-friendly office policies. So I'm going to turn to my guests and ask, why are we still treating men and women differently when it comes to family and careers?
Who would like to go first?
Well, I'd first like to say, I feel as a woman, we are exhausted and there are a lot of sacrifices we have to make. And usually, the sacrifices are maybe personal things that, we just say, okay, forget that, forget us because we have to, take care of the family or have to do that, project for my company. So just want to say, we are always asked, how do we do it? And it comes with a lot of exhaustion. Wouldn't you agree?
Right. Well, the issue comes down to whether that is our, there's an argument that that's our natural inclination, or is that just by a default mechanism, the way things have trended, and can we change that, and is it changing? And that's how we're looking at it. Chris?
Yeah, well, I guess to address the question of why are women asked that when men aren't, I think it's just because, unfortunately, social change comes very slowly, and we're still...
Some social change comes very slowly.
Yeah. And so I think we're still in the wave. I think, my generation is more open to it than previous generations have been, and I think that trend will continue.
Is that something that you're discussing with your wife? Is there an assumption that someone will have more of the responsibility with children?
No, and I don't know if we're special in that, but we also, I don't think it feels relevant to us because neither of us can leave work. Neither of us would be able to support our family on only our incomes. So we right now don't have the choice for only one of us to work.
Okay,
and coming on the show, I was asking a lot of millennials. And they were kind of shocked by it. They said, gosh, I'm going to work and I'm going to have a family. And the man I marry, I would assume he's going to work and he's going to want to take part in caregiving. So then I started reaching out and asking the man. And that's exactly what I hear. They expect to work, but they want to take part in taking care of the family, and they do not want to be left out of this new trend of, giving more family time to, raising your child. It's just not the woman, but the man wants to be included. So in, your job area, I would think that's something you expect?
Absolutely.
Not to grill you, but, and you haven't been through the child experience yet, but let me put a couple of scenarios out. I understand that, but okay, child's in school, falls, gets hurt, and has to be rushed to the emergency room. Who gets the phone call?
Sure.
And who runs out? I mean, there's nitty-gritty details of that,
Geographic details. That it all
somebody
comes
being
down
closer to home. I don't know that our generation, I know, I asked you a question, didn't let you answer, so let me let you answer
Oh,
that.
no, I think, I think you're right on in saying that. I think that's something that would come with the specifics of both of our jobs. I mean, am I in a position where I can leave my job for 10 minutes to do something, or an hour? Is she in a position where she can do that? I think what we're looking for and what we're working towards is owning a business of our own. I work in the cafe industry, so opening a cafe of our own would allow both of us to work in the cafe and cover each other and come and go as we please. But as it is right now, we are both beholden to the schedules of our work and don't necessarily have the flexibility to just up and leave when is necessary.
Well, let me ask you one other thing related to that. Among you and your friends, is there still a stigma to taking paternity leave? And a lot of men will say, yes, my company offers it, but I could never take it.
I don't know. I can't speak for all men in saying that, obviously, but I would not feel any stigma myself. And my brother-in-law just recently had their second child, and he took his full paternity leave, which isn't much. It's very short. I think it was even just 2 weeks maybe, or even just a week. But he took the full maternity or paternity leave, and at least in my family, there's certainly no judgment to that.
And I think Mark Zuckerberg from Facebook has made a great stride for men, because he, upped the time off for everyone who was going to, even if they were going to adopt a child, didn't matter if it was the mother or the father, and he took 2 months off for himself. I think he should have taken more time off, but maybe he will. But he, made a policy at Facebook that is being flexible and recognizing the importance of family first.
So I just wanted to say that we've discussed this a lot, and a lot of the fine details of this topic. But I think Chris is hitting upon what we've discussed more, which is a partnership. And do you look at your situation as something where you're equals, and maybe your career at this point in time will take the lead over your partner, but maybe the partner will get an opportunity and they'll shift into something that has more commitment? And I think we're hearing more of that than we heard before. And also the opportunity to work anywhere. Technology opens doors. Being able to have a computer at home. I review documents at night often, so I have dinner time with my family. Your sleep is compromised sometimes, but these are the things that I've heard talked about.
Of course, it depends
giving us flexibility.
what you're doing. A doctor has to see the patients,
Yes.
and a factory worker has to be in the factory. So,
Right. But there's more and more of remote workplaces, and I think the company finds benefits in that, because if they can have the office in the person's home, it's saving on having huge office spaces to house all your employees. So there's all types of programs, having meetings to accommodate many people. So that's a good trend for us. But I'd like to touch upon that book that was written that said lean in, and kind of going towards that women can do it all. So
and we should just background. That's the Chief Operating Officer, written by the Chief Operating Officer of Facebook, Sheryl Sandberg, and it's called Lean In, advising women to lean into their careers.
Well, I disagree.
Okay.
I personally had jumped into a career because I really wanted to do it. I had a career change. But, being in such a high pressure position, I saw it was really not impossible, but a lot of sacrificing goes on when you're in a high-powered position. You just can't do it all. I saw it's very impossible.
Well, on the subject of lean in, one of the things I found interesting, as you may have heard, in the last year, Sandberg's husband died unexpectedly and untimely. And after that, she restricted her work travel to be around for the children. Mm-hmm. Now, how does that work with leaning in, and what kind of flexibility do most people have?
Well, the implication, as I read it, of the title was that we weren't leaning in. And I do take offense to that, because Nancy, as you commented on earlier, whether it's the husband or the wife, parenting is exhausting, and taking care of elder parents is exhausting.
And sometimes you're doing both.
And sometimes you're doing both. So to be told that you need to lean in and you're not doing enough, that is somewhat insulting and condescending, because what you need to do is possibly make different choices at different times in your life. And it's frustrating to be in a phase where you have obligations of family taking everything over, but there's nothing you could do about it, because otherwise everything falls apart.
And I think that's the most important thing to life is family. And also, being in a company that, oversees people is for the company to have sensitivity to the importance of a family. And that's another, something that you have to look for when you go to search for jobs, to see how that policy is, how they see the family.
And do you think that that has changed where it's becoming something valued in the work world?
Well,
or in the court system?
What spurred this conversation with Maura and I was the book Unfinished Business by Anne Marie Slaughter. And she did address this topic and came to the conclusion that it's very dependent upon your manager. So a company could have a policy, but different managers interpret it different ways. And maybe if you're a manager and see someone's a good employee, and regardless of the fact that they might scoot out for a doctor's appointment or a school play, they get the work done. So the manager's okay with that. But another manager may not be. So it's interesting how these policies are not uniformly applied. And I haven't come to a conclusion what's right or wrong, but you hear different stories with different people. Chris is discussing starting his own business, which is the path that I took. That worked for me. I had kids, obligations. I couldn't expect my employer. Actually, my employer said, no, you can't come in at 9:15. I want you here at 8:30. Didn't work. So I went self-employed.
And, talking about that for your audience listening, always ask your boss, because I had a situation when I had first started out my 25-year career as a teacher. When I had a baby, I took a lot of time off, but when it was time to go back, I felt I still needed to be home. So I asked them, could I take off more time? And they said, absolutely not. 2 days later, they called me back. They said, what do you want? So, always ask. Do not be afraid to ask your company to be flexible.
Great. Let's move on to valuation of women. And I just want to go over some statistics. Because just today there was a news story that 5 top women soccer players are accusing U.S. Soccer of wage discrimination, citing, I believe it was a 40% difference between their pay and that of the men's. And as we all know, the women's soccer team has been very successful, the American women's soccer team. Just last week, professional tennis players were debating whether the women players should be paid as much as the men. And a recent study published at Glassdoor.com shows that the gender pay gap is real, though one of the big reasons is that women are being sorted into industries that just pay less, that their services are valued for less. Does this ring a bell with any of you?
Well, I went to a conference on women in media industries, which is everything from the internet to advertising, and it's completely changed, as we're all aware, in the last 10 years at lightning speed. And these women, a panel of a broad age group from anywhere from 30 years old to 50, said you have to speak up and you have to open your mouth if you're not happy with the terms. And women tend to not speak up and to take it. And Chris was asking me a question before we got on the air, which I thought was relevant.
Yeah, I guess what I was wondering is, I am interested in equal pay for equal work, but I guess I'm just unsure how it actually works, because if I interview for a coffee company and I make a determination as to what I think the job is, excuse me, what I think the job is worth, I will ask for a certain salary, and I can be given that salary, or I'm not given that salary, and I may be making more or less than anyone else in the company in my same position. So I just wonder, from a legal perspective, how does equal pay for equal work actually work? What does it look like?
Well, I think, not having researched the laws, et cetera, but it stands to common sense that it's something that you said early on. Someone's given a salary offer, and who takes it and who doesn't. And one of the speakers in this panel discussion I heard had worked for one of the large banks, and they did a lot of study groups on examining why they couldn't have more women in the upper echelons of the corporation, what was preventing them. And they found that women were more likely to not think as highly of themselves, where men would dive right into it. And they gave examples where if there were 10 criteria for a job and a woman had 9 of them, not the 10th, she'd say, I'm not a good candidate. But a man would say, oh, I've got 3 of them, I'm the perfect candidate. Mm-hmm. So I'm not saying this is true, but this is what their study group found. So maybe, while in many cases it is illegal, but it would have to be brought to a lawsuit and fit all the criteria of that breach of the law. But it might just boil down to they give one person a job offer and they take it, and the other one says, no, I'm worth more, and fights it.
So is it possible that women are undervaluing themselves?
would say so.
I've heard studies like that, but I also look at boards on companies. They're dominantly men. So I have always wondered: is it the family responsibility that a woman takes on that is stopping her to be on boards? Because there's an organization called 2020. They're looking for a 20% increase of females on boards. But I'm wondering if the female has stopped herself from being on a board because of her responsibility to a family. Because usually board meetings, they're late, and it's just.
Well, you also have to have reached a certain level in your career, and sometimes you can't reach that and juggle everything.
Well, I don't know. This is getting to another point. Do you really want to be on that board? They're there till 11 o'clock at night. Actually, I don't want to be on that board. I have had those meetings, and I'm happy not to do them anymore.
Well,
but it could just be a social situation where one man knows another man from sports or whatever, and he says, you'd be great, I'd like to have you on this board. So maybe they do have to encourage these boards to be a little bit broader in their
But often on the corporate boards, they are looking for people with certain skills.
To bring in, money or
and it
connections.
depends what the boards pay.
Yeah, but it's just so dominated by men. We need balance.
Well, let me ask you this, Nancy, because you are actually in the C-suite. What is the value of what are called women's skills in caretaking? How useful is that actually in the business world in corporate America?
Well, I said it before, is recognizing the importance of family. So, coming to a company where I have employees, if they're going to come to me and say, I have to get my child to this, I'm sensitive to that because I've been there. And so I think that's the most important thing that I can bring from being a parent, and also I was a school teacher, so how important it is for the parent to have a parent to be involved in a child's life and their schooling time.
Do you think women run things differently?
Well, they usually
meetings or projects.
Well, I just know women are very usually collaborative, keep things in budget, but I think they're very sensitive to the things that need to be taken care of at home. You were going to say something, Chris.
Well, in terms of that, maybe it's just a male bias, but I think bullish men are bullish men, bullish women are bullish women, and some people will run a meeting one way and others will run a meeting in the next, and perhaps leaning in maybe, or confidence is part of asserting yourself in business. I know that it is. But in terms of your question, what can a parent bring to the corporate world, or what does child rearing bring to the
caretaking?
Caretaking. I would imagine that it's managing schedules, it's multitasking, it's learning how to appease the people around you to keep their spirits up. It's management. So I think those skills directly relate.
I thought of that when you were asking this question, because I was at a sports meeting for high school sports players, and one of the coaches said, let me tell you what you're going to learn from playing the sport that you can apply to your life. And it was being organized, time management, and it's actually very similar to parenting. So if I have to get something done, I'm used to, organizing, getting it done, preparing, having wipes in the car, and et cetera.
I have a staff of 18, 20-year-olds.
Right.
So, to balance all of their needs, desires, scheduling, mishaps, and can't find them, those are very useful qualities.
I remember this woman who was a great mentor to me, Gert Boyle from Columbia Sportswear. She said, if you are a mother, you are quite capable of going into the workplace because you have learned all the skills as a parent. And she felt, she was quite successful taking over her husband's position at Columbia because she had been a mother. She had 3 children.
So conversely, something I thought of reading the Slaughter book was fathers can be different but great in the parenting arena. Sometimes us mothers get a little too anal. We're doing too many dishes and cleaning everything. And there was a great sign, and maybe she referenced it in the book or something else I read, that said the man who was running the house had a sign that said, I wanted the house clean enough to be healthy, but dirty enough to be happy. And I guess his wife had a big job, so he ran the house. And I thought, you need a little bit of that, taking the air out of things, to just say, let's have fun or let's not take it so seriously. And so maybe these role changes can be good for everyone.
And on that note, we are running out of time, but Nancy, I'm just going to ask you, since you got Archie comics, what would Betty and Veronica say? Can you do it all?
Well, thank you. You know, it's now Archie's 75th anniversary, and if you were to ask me, I happen to bring my business cards, about Betty or Veronica, I would say Veronica's choice and her attitude would be, you can do it all. She has that CIA in her, you know, confidence, intelligence, and allure. But, you know, Betty, I think she would want to balance things, and she would do it quite differently. She would not say, she would be truthful. You can't do it all. It's very difficult, comes with a lot of sacrifices. And I don't know if we have time for me to say this, but with men going into parenting, I wonder if they feel isolated when they go to mommy and me classes, because I would imagine you're outnumbered by a lot of moms, and then there's the dad. So I wonder how you're going to deal with that.
That will be another show. After he has.
Okay, well, thank you.
Yes. Thank you so much for joining us. We are out of time. But stay tuned out there, because we will be back with more community stories. Oh, and the answer to the trivia question.
Welcome back to the Local Live. I'm Bobby Baez, and instead of our usual LMC Varsity Sports Play of the Week, it is my pleasure to introduce you to two Mamaroneck athletes, Fernando Doctors and Luis Galeano. Thank you so much for joining me, and congratulations on winning the 37th International Dallas Cup and making the New York Soccer Club #1. Pleasure to have you guys.
Thank you for having us.
So, first question I really want to ask you guys is really the more important one. What is the Dallas Cup?
The Dallas Cup is a cup that is held it's held every year annually, and it's invite only. So it's depending on how you do prior to the tournament, whether like your team has to be really good. For example, we won our league, which is the EDP league, and then we were able to qualify for nationals, and we ended up winning nationals as well. And by winning nationals, we got the okay. We checked all the standards, like that our team was good enough to get into the tournament.
So what was well, I shouldn't say what, but what teams did you go up against? Like, what kind of competition did you guys go up against?
So yeah, like in the tournament in general, there were a bunch of international teams. Us, for one, we actually played a bunch of Dallas teams and one team from England. All good teams, like Luis said before, from invitation. So high competition. But luckily, we obviously dealt with adversity and beat all the teams and won the tournament.
Yeah, I can tell, because you guys have some nice medals here. So, one thing I want to ask is, have you guys ever really been to Dallas before? Was this a new experience going to the Dallas Cup, or traveling that far?
Personally, I've traveled a lot. Like, our team has traveled to Holland over the summer. We competed in an international tournament over there. We've gone to Florida. We've gone to Indiana. But this is my first trip personally to Dallas, and it was different dealing with the weather conditions over there. It was very windy, which caused a lot of problems during each game for us and both teams, basically.
This is a huge event for soccer clubs all around the country, all around the world, really. What step are you going to make now that you guys have won a Dallas Cup? What does this mean for your future in soccer, whether you're going to, go pro or play in some other league?
Yeah, so Dallas Cup is a great opportunity for us as players. There are a bunch of college coaches there watching us play, and obviously the more we won, the more the college coaches took note. So there's that for one. Also, we've got a better national ranking. Now I think we're 4th in the nation, so that's also good for us. Yeah. So that allows us to attend more and more tournaments and get placed higher and higher in competition, probably go possibly back to Europe again, we're not sure, but giving us another chance to compete in a national championship again.
So are there any players that you guys look up to or you consider your favorite?
When I first got to the hotel where we were staying, it's where all the tournament-based stuff was being held. So there was a banner that said David Beckham participated when he was about 14 years old, and I thought that was really cool because ever since I was younger, I was watching Madrid games, watching England games, and he's been one of my favorites. Like, I try to recreate my free kicks and shoot just like him.
And what about you, Fernando?
Yeah, similarly, I saw Andrea Pirlo's face on that banner, and he's my favorite player ever.
Yeah, and he plays for NYCFC, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does.
That's right there.
So it was kind of special to see that.
Yeah, so it seems like you guys had a great time, and apparently you guys are up there with one of the best teams in the world, I guess it seems. And congratulations and best of luck to both of you guys.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for having us.
So I am Bobby Baez, and stay tuned for more Local Live.
Looking for your child to have a great summer? Sign them up for LMC-TV's Team Filmmaking Workshop. Young people 12 and up have an opportunity to film, star, and direct in their own movies. Check out last year's participants. Don't let your team miss out on a fun, productive summer. Sign them up today. LMC-TV, your community connection.
Last week, more than 350 high school students, counselors, and youth workers, including several from our community, took part in PrideWorks, an all-day conference for lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender youth and their allies. 2 volunteers from LMC-TV were there, and they brought back this video.
Welcome to PrideWorks.
This was the 17th PrideWorks conference, and the gym at SUNY Purchase was packed as former college and pro football player Wade Davis told what it's like to be closeted and gay in the NFL.
But I remember we were watching film, and I was watching myself, and I was thinking, wow, you are standing so gay. You are walking so gay. You are running so gay. Would you just stop being so gay? My whole life up to that point was wasted motion. Because everything that I did was spent trying not to be the person who I really was.
Yonkers varsity basketball coach Anthony Nicodemo says his players respect him more as an out gay coach.
And I know I can speak for myself and my friends who have come out who are coaches or athletes, they've been embraced by their teammates. I mean, I've done it for 3 years now. My kids embrace me, and there's no difference with my team except that we're actually closer now that they know the truth.
The teens and adults chose 3 workshops to attend from more than 30 offered by volunteer leaders.
This is the first time that Purchase College has hosted PrideWorks, and we couldn't be more thrilled with that.
PrideWorks promotes a positive message, teaches leadership skills, and fosters a sense of community for these kids, their allies, and the adults in their lives in the lower Hudson Valley.
I learned a lot both about the importance of the specific language we use and also about the need for various kinds of supports at every level of our society. It was a very powerful conference.
The message of PrideWorks is clear. Accept that people are different, celebrate that diversity, and be proud of who you are.
So PrideWorks is a space where I believe that young people are enlivening the entire world.
Reporting for the Local Live, I'm Mike Witch.
Thanks, Mike and cameraman Matt Bildock for that story. We're hoping to have some of the local participants as roundtable guests in the coming weeks. Amanda is a beautiful girl rescued from the streets by a pet rescue volunteer. She's a shy girl who has blossomed and come out of her shell thanks to lots of love. She's friendly and loves to be petted. Amanda is ready for a place to call home.
Remember, if you'd like to keep us on the air, support our program by checking out our website at www.lmctv.org. We really appreciate any contribution.
We are always welcoming new interns and volunteers, so please send your emails to thelocallive@lmctv.org and join us. We love hearing from you. Thank you so much for watching this episode of The Local Live. I'm Rebecca Paganini.
And I'm Stephen Anastas. See you next week for another episode of The Local Live. Goodbye.
Here's my Jedi.